name is Johanna, and I'd like to welcome you to Book Passage and really thank you all for coming out and supporting your local independent bookstore. It means everything to us, obviously, and when you walk in our doors, you're literally partaking in a literary feast, and all of you are the reason for that. So thank you so much. This evening's guest, Neal Stephenson, as you all know, is the best-selling author of several novels, including Snow Crash, Cryptonomicon, and his 3-volume historical epic, The Baroque Cycle. Stephenson is also, as you all know, a magnificent and nuanced writer whose epic stories transport his readers to another time and another place. His brilliance lies in making those otherworldly landscapes surprisingly and eerily familiar. His latest novel, Seveneves, is an epic story spanning over 5,000 years, which speaks of an Earth in which humanity is struggling for survival in the wake of catastrophic events. The narrative is profoundly insightful and weaves together psychology, philosophy, technology, and great literature, making it one of the greatest works of speculative fiction to date. Please join me with a warm welcome for Neal Stephenson.
And thanks to the folks in the cafe for a great quick snack. These things are very important when you're on a book tour. When I was a kid, I used to ride my bike to the bookmobile in Ames, Iowa, and check out the new science fiction every week. And at some point, I read a book whose name and author I have forgotten. It was a space arc book. It was a book where some global disaster had forced the people of Earth to build a giant rocket ship and put some people on it and send them off to safety in space. And I don't know if it was any good, but when you're a kid, or even when you're an adult, when you find the right book at the right time, it's a big deal. It makes a big impression on you. So apparently that one made a big impression on me because I'm publishing a space arc book called Seveneves, and it took a long time because it turns out that if you're going to make a contribution to the space arc subgenre, you have to come up with a very finely calibrated disaster scenario. So it's got to be something that's going to kill everybody, but it can't be too fast or too slow. If it's too fast, like if an asteroid comes out of nowhere tomorrow and kills everybody, there's no time to build an arc, so no arc novel. And if it's too slow, we would probably just solve the problem instead of running away in an arc. So it's got to be something that's predictable, that's going to happen in the space of a few years, and it's so obvious that no one can argue with it. It can't be like climate change where people. You can't get your uncle to believe it's real. So about 10 years ago, I was working at Blue Origin, which is a space company in Seattle, a private spaceflight company, kind of looking at some different issues related to space, and I became aware of the space junk problem. We've been going into space long enough as a species that there's a bunch of space junk cluttering low Earth orbit. There's spent rocket boosters and dead satellites and things that astronauts dropped on spacewalks, and it's all zooming around at tremendous velocities. And every so often, two of these pieces of junk will just happen to bang into each other, and because they're going so fast, they tend to shatter into smaller pieces that kind of spray out in all directions on new orbits. And it's been pointed out that this could snowball. And in a short time, we could go from the way it is now to a situation where there's so many pieces of space junk zooming around up there that we can't even go into space the way that we're accustomed to. So that turned out to be not a very interesting idea on a commercial level, but on a novel writing level, something kind of twigged in my brain, and I started thinking maybe I had found my space arc premise. But there's not enough space junk to kill anyone, much less everyone. So I needed a lot more stuff, a lot more things to bang into each other. So in this book, I begin by blowing up the moon. That's in the first sentence of the first page. And it's not really explained why or how. It's left as a mystery, but that's how it starts. It's fragments into initially 7 large pieces that remain kind of gravitationally bound. So they're kind of milling around each other, but their common center of gravity is still orbiting the Earth the way the moon has always done. One of the characters in the book is a guy named Dubois Jerome Xavier Harris, who he goes by Dube for short among his friends. Dr. Harris professionally. He's a Caltech astrophysicist, very distinguished. He's a serious scientist, but he's also a science popularizer. He's one of those guys who you see on the Today Show talking about science or what have you. Early on, as you can imagine, as soon as the moon blows up, his phone starts ringing, and it keeps ringing for a while. And he's called upon to sort of talk about it in public, and he's trying to kind of calm people down and put sort of an interesting, turn it into more of a science problem. So one of the things he does is give some names to the 7 pieces of the moon. He doesn't want to call them Thor and Nemesis. So he gives them the names initially are Potato Head, Mr. Spinney, Acorn, Peach Bit, Scoop, Big Boy, and Kidney Bean. And that lasts for about a week until Mr. Spinney just happens to collide with Kidney Bean and breaks it in half. So now there's 8 pieces. Seeing that gets Dube's brain working, his scientist brain, and so we're going to pick the action up here a few days later at Camp David, where he's talking to the president and a bunch of other important people. My friend and colleague Bruce Sterling once said that a thriller is a science fiction novel that includes the President of the United States. So this is one of those. I've never just dropped the President into a narrative before. When you're writing one of these, that's the kind of thing that happens. The Pope shows up, it's that kind of book. So we're at Camp David at a meeting. We need to stop asking ourselves what happened and start talking about what is going to happen, Dr. Harris said to the President of the United States, her science advisor, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and about half of the cabinet. You could see that the President didn't like that. Julia Bliss Flaherty, currently nearing the end of her first year on that job. The chairman of the JCS was nodding, but President Flaherty was giving him a hard, squinting look, and not just because of the light coming in the window from the skies over Camp David. She thought he was up to something, trying to shift blame, trying to push some new kind of agenda. Go on, she said, then remembering her manners. Dr. Harris. 4 days ago, I watched Kidney Bean break in half, Dube said. The 7 sisters became 8. Since then, we've seen a near miss that could have fractured Mr. Spinney. I would almost welcome it, said the President, if we could get rid of those ridiculous names. It'll happen, Dube said. The question is, how long does Mr. Spinney have to live, and what does that tell us? He clicked a small remote in his hand and brought up a slide on the big screen. Heads turned toward it, and he felt a mild sense of relief at not being stared at anymore by the President. The slide was a montage of a snowball rolling down a hill, a fuzzy bacterial culture growing in a petri dish, a mushroom cloud, and other seemingly unrelated phenomena. What do all these have in common? They're exponential, he said. The word gets tossed around a lot by people who use it to mean anything that's getting big fast, but it has a specific mathematical meaning. It means any process where the more it happens, the more it happens. The population explosion, a nuclear chain reaction, a snowball rolling down a hill whose speed of growth is pegged to how much it's grown. He clicked through another slide showing plots of exponential curves on a graph, then to an image of the moon's 8 pieces. When the moon had only one piece, the probability of a collision was 0, he said. Because there was nothing to collide with, Pete Starling, the president's science advisor, explained. Thank you, Dr. Starling. When you have 2 pieces, why then, yes, they can collide. The more pieces you get, the higher the chances of any 2 pieces banging into each other. But what happens when they bang into each other? He clicked the control again and showed a little movie of kidney beans breakup. Well, sometimes, but not always, they break in half, which means you have more pieces. 8 instead of 7, 9 instead of 8. And that increase in number means an increase in the odds of further collisions. It's an exponential, said the chairman. It occurred to me 4 days ago that it did have all the earmarks of an exponential process, Doob allowed, and we know what happens to those. President Flaherty had been watching him intently, but she now flicked her eyes over at Pete Starling, who made a dramatic upward zooming gesture with one hand, tracing the profile of a hockey stick. When an exponential hits the bend in the hockey stick curve, Doob said, the result can be indistinguishable from a detonation, or it can look like a slow, steady increase. It all depends on the time constant, the inherent speed with which the exponential thing happens, and on how we perceive it as humans. So it might be nothing, said the chairman. It could be that 100 years will pass before we go from 8 chunks to 9 chunks, Doob said, nodding at him. But 4 days ago I got worried that it might be one of those things that looks more like an explosion. So my grad students and I have been crunching some numbers, building a mathematical model of the process that we can use to get a handle on the timescale. And what are your results, Dr. Harris? I assume you have some, or else you wouldn't be here. The good news is that the Earth is one day going to have a beautiful system of rings, just like Saturn. The bad news is that it's going to be messy. In other words, said Pete Starling, the chunks of the moon are going to keep banging into each other indefinitely and breaking up into smaller and smaller pieces, spreading out into a system of rings. But some rocks are going to fall on the ground and break things. And can you tell me, Dr. Harris, when this is going to happen? Over what period of time? The president asked. We're still gathering data, tuning the model's parameters, Doob said. So my estimates could all be off by a factor of 2, maybe 3. Exponentials are tricky that way. But what it looks like to me is this. He clicked through to a new graph, a blue curve showing a slow, steady climb over time. The time scale at the bottom is something like 1 to 3 years. During that time, the number of collisions and the number of new fragments are going to grow steadily. What is BFR? Asked Pete Starling, for the graph's vertical scale was labeled thus. Bolide fragmentation rate, Doob said, the rate at which new rocks are being produced. Is that a standard term? Pete wanted to know. His tone was not so much hostile as unnerved. No, Doob said. I made it up yesterday on the plane. He was tempted to add something like, I am allowed to coin terms, but didn't want things to get snarky this early. Seeing that Pete had been silenced, at least for a moment, Doob tried to get back into his rhythm. We'll see an increasing number of meteorite impacts. Some will cause great damage, but overall life is not going to change that much. But then he clicked again, and the plot bent sharply upward, turning white. We are going to witness an event that I am calling the white sky. It'll happen over hours or days. The system of discrete planetoids that we can see up there now is going to grind itself up into a vast number of much smaller fragments. They're going to turn into a white cloud in the sky, and that cloud is going to spread out. Click. The graph continued shooting upward, rocketing up into a new domain and turning red. A day or two after the white sky event, we'll begin a thing I am calling the hard rain, because not all of those rocks are going to stay up there. Some of them are going to fall into the Earth's atmosphere.
He turned the projector off. This was an unusual move, but it snapped them all out of PowerPoint hypnosis and forced them to look at him. The aides in the back of the room were still thumbing their phones, but they didn't matter. By some, Doob said, I mean trillions. The room remained silent. It is going to be a meteorite bombardment such as the Earth has not seen since the primordial age when the solar system was formed, Doob said. Those fiery trails we've been seeing in the sky lately as the meteorites come in and burn up, there will be so many of those that they will merge into a dome of fire that will set aflame anything that can see it. The entire surface of the Earth is going to be sterilized. Glaciers will boil. The only way to survive is to get away from the atmosphere, go underground, or go into space. Well, obviously that is very hard news if it is true, the president said. They all sat and thought about it silently for a period of time that might have been 1 minute or 5. We will have to do both, the president said. Go into space and underground. Obviously the latter is easier. Yes. We can get to work building underground bunkers for, and she caught herself before saying something impolitic, for people to take refuge in. Doob didn't say anything. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said, Dr. Harris, I'm an old logistics guy. I deal in stuff. How much stuff do we need to get underground? How many sacks of potatoes and rolls of toilet paper per occupant? I guess what I'm asking is, just how long is the hard rain going to last? Doob said, my best estimate is that it will last somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 years. So that's the basic setup. That gets us to building the ark and further adventures. I won't, go through the whole story. I'll say, cool things get made. We've got some nice illustrations from Weta in New Zealand. So this is, when I was a kid reading science fiction books, I won't show you that one. It's a spoiler. There's an insert in the middle of the book with two-sided color. When I was a kid reading science fiction books, I always dug books with good illustrations, and so that was scratching an itch I've had for a long time. I don't know if any of you saw any of the dashboard cam footage from the Chavez meteorite a couple of years ago, which was fairly big. The interesting thing about it to me was how bright it was. So it clearly maxed out. It was much brighter than daylight, so it maxed out the camera. And it turns out, I later read that some of the people who were standing out in the open watching that thing pass overhead got sunburned. Even though it only lasted for a few moments, the intensity of the light was such that they got such bad sunburn that a few days later they peeled. So that tells you that something about the heat, something about the physical processes that are going on. And we're talking about plasma, not just something that's kind of hot. And we're talking about light that bears the same relationship to kind of ordinary fire as, say, the arc of an arc welder bears to the light of a candle. So you can imagine what would happen if this was going on all over the world. Anyway, not to ruin everybody's evening, but that's the premise of the book, and that's kind of where the story really kicks off. So I thought that maybe I would spend a little time taking some questions. Johanna, maybe you could kind of keep track of time. I don't know what the overall timetable is, but if you could kind of let us know when we're running low, then I'll do questions, and then later we'll sign books. Awesome. Okay, thanks. And there's not a microphone for questions, so just stand up and project as much as you feel comfortable. And if it seems like maybe people couldn't hear you, I'll repeat your question. So, assuming there are questions. Okay. So
Lots of questions.
Well, I haven't read the new book yet, but it does kind of make me wonder.
Have you ever come across a sort of an obscure thing called a canticle for Leibowitz?
Of course.
And influenced you at all, or?
Well, I mean, I mean, it's a great classic of science fiction. Yeah. I wrote a previous book called Anathem, which has some more obvious similarities to that.
Made me ask, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a you know, the story of the fall of Rome and the monastic tradition that emerged from it is a powerful, kind of fascinating story, and it's a natural thing to you can't help thinking of developing that into various kind of science fictional versions. So yeah, great book. There was right behind, yeah.
And you can feel free to plead the fifth on this one if you like, but as a author process question, you said you don't explain why the moon blew up. Do you know why the moon blew up?
Well, that would be kind of like explaining it, so.
Say yes or no.
Yeah, no. I didn't want to have it turn into the wrong kind of book, and the wrong kind of book would have been talking about the whys and wherefores, you know, and that's not what I wanted to do in this case. So just went straight to it blew up. We'll talk about later, you know, 5,000 years from now, if we're still alive, maybe we can talk about why it blew up. But for now, we have to survive. So, wow, everybody's in a direct line. Yes.
In the book Cryptonomicon, you talked about another kind of currency that wasn't backed by a country.
Right.
Do you think Bitcoin took off of that? Do you think your idea created that, or do you think
No.
I only heard of it from you? Did other people have that idea?
Excuse me. No, the people were talking about that a long time before I wrote Cryptonomicon, and well, maybe not a long time, but you know, that I got interested in that because after my first couple of science fiction books got published, I ended up kind of getting to know some of the Bay Area cypherpunks who used to hang around down in Oakland and Berkeley, and who would talk about that kind of thing. So that was very much a topic of conversation with those guys for a while, and that was one of their kind of big aspirations, was to figure out a way to make a currency like that. And so yeah, now, I mean, it's been tried in various ways for a long time. Bitcoin, you know, appears to be a particularly well architected and kind of interesting way of doing it. So it's taken off more than some of the other ones have. I think they also got the timing right. I think in the early 90s, the cypherpunks knew their stuff technically, but the time wasn't quite right for setting up a new currency. But now that the internet has matured to the point where so much commerce is happening on it, it's the perfect time to get something like that going. Yes.
I really appreciate in a lot of your earlier books, particularly, you said the humor, you know, a main character named hero protagonist, things like that really, you know, and I've enjoyed all your books, but I feel like there's been less and less humor
Of the funny stuff?
of the funny stuff. And fairly, in this book, it's a hard place to work in. But you're a very funny writer, and I just wonder if this is something you're just feeling more serious, or you're just getting into more serious things, or maybe I'm missing the jokes. I don't know.
Oh no. I mean, yeah, Seveneves is definitely more in a serious vein. You know, Reamde, I think, actually had some humor in it. A lot of it was kind of situational humor, just ridiculous things happening, and Richard, the main character in that book, has got a kind of running monologue going in his head that I think is sometimes funny. But yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, mental note, write something funny.
Just for me.
Yeah, way in the back.
Yes.
I really enjoyed Snow Crash and Diamond Age because of the strong female characters that pass the female test, where they're not all about their male counterpart or have conversations outside of their
The Bechdel test?
Yeah. And I was hoping that you would continue to do that. So I wanted to know if you've got strong female leads coming up in any of your new books.
Seveneves. Asked and answered. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, okay, I was very excited to come here tonight. I'm trying to tell my wife why I'm excited.
But thank you. It's very sweet of you to say so. And yes, rest assured that this is that kind of book. Sorry, go ahead.
Anyway, I'm talking to my wife. She said we got to ask him a question. We talked about the types of things you've written and some of the prophetic stuff that came out of things like Snow Crash, where writers, they see things before it actually happens. So I thought I'd ask you, do you see something with this Elon Musk and artificial intelligence, and is there a book in that realm for you in the future where Elon Musk says this is a big threat?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. I'm getting an AI question every one of these things I go to. Yeah, no, it's I don't know about threat. It's the AI people have a rough kind of situation in terms of their image, because there are a lot of brilliant people doing some amazing stuff, and they've invented a lot of techniques that have made their way into software that we use all the time. So, but as soon as that happens, that technique stops being called AI and just becomes software, right? So AI seems to be reserved for stuff that's A, hasn't quite happened yet, and B, if it happened, it would be terribly scary and threatening. So it's not a fair situation that those people are in. I mean, the Google self-driving car has many attributes that are arguably AI type attributes, but I'm not sure if they are openly putting the name AI on it. I haven't looked. As far as being dangerous, I'm not sure. I mean, to me it seems like AI stuff is most useful when it's doing the kinds of things that humans aren't already good at. So since humans are really good at being, conniving bastards, maybe AI won't be that way. In this book, there's a lot of robots, pretty highly evolved robots that have a kind of animal-like level of AI. But there's not like AI in the cloud, with godlike characteristics. So the term's a little amorphous. I don't know as much about it as I probably should, and so I tend not to make it a subject of my work. Yes. Yeah.
Kind of a double question. I haven't read the new book either, but the main character's nickname is Doob.
Mm-hmm.
In some of your other books, you have names like Mercurial and Saturnian, and just sort of references to personalities. So I'm wondering what Doob references, and
It's
how
just
you
short
come
for
up-
Dubois.
Yeah.
His given name is Dubois.
How do you come up with the characters?
With the characters or the names?
The characters.
The characters. Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm terrible at these questions. I have no self-awareness, no introspection. It's like asking a dog why he scratches himself. It's what I do. It's what I do. I don't. There's not a process or a method for it. So. I don't know. Yes.
I know you've probably been asked this many, many times, or at least it's been brought up, but Cryptonomicon and Snow Crash, I feel very well lend themselves to like a mini series or a television movie. And I know you've stated before that movies are not something that you are interested in, or having your works produced into movies or
No, I
any kind of film.
wouldn't quite say that, but go ahead.
But I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were, because I'm trying to be a writer and a screenwriter, and I just wanted to know, because every time I read one of your books, I instantly think like, this is who should play this character, this is where it should take place, this is who the director should be. I don't know.
Yeah,
What are
there's
your
a,
thoughts on that?
so this is a question for those of you in the back about film and television adaptation of my books, how I feel about that, et cetera, et cetera. Most of my books are simply too long to be movies. That's probably what you heard me say. With the rise of the long form, high quality miniseries on TV has kind of opened up some possibilities for longer form works. And we did investigate that with Ream D. Hasn't taken off yet. And there's various of my books have been kind of rattling around in option land or development hell for 30 years, actually. Yeah, so the Big U in 1984 was optioned by Ridley Scott. Yes. It's fun to think about. I'm fortunate enough that I can get by without it. Earlier in my career, that was not the case. Earlier in my career, I couldn't have survived without like movie option money. Now I can. And so it just depends on weird, inscrutable things that happen in that business. So, I will say that the direction that the movies have gone makes it harder, right? So, in the future, I think that every movie will be either a Star Wars movie or a Marvel Universe movie. And when somebody proposes to do something that's not that, the studio executives will look at that idea and they'll say, well, should we spend $200 million making this new thing? That might not work, or should we spend the same amount of money making the 37th reboot of Spider-Man? Which we're guaranteed, dead certain we will make our money back, right? So there's no decision to make there, right? You know what's going to happen. So that's true of movies. It's true of large budget video games. It's true of a lot of stuff. TV is more experimental. So something might happen there, but I'm not going to rush into anything. But thanks for. I'm glad to hear that this is interesting to you on a visual level. Sir, yes.
So I love your works.
Thanks.
And then I was reading Quicksilver.
Okay.
Part of the trilogy, and I just love Quicksilver. And then every time I've tried to get into the follow-up. Confusion, I get confused. I get a certain way, and then I just can't. It's such, to me, it seems like such a switch over from what's going on.
From Quicksilver?
Yeah, from Quicksilver. And I'm kind of waiting, okay, the guys I like going to come back, and maybe they will, maybe they won't.
Who are the guys you like?
The science guys.
Oh, the science guys.
Yes, I'm a science guy.
Okay, now I see your problem.
Yeah.
You thought you were gonna. You thought you were
can
gonna.
help me get past my reader's block.
Yeah, no, you thought you were gonna get another book about science guys, and you got pirates. Yeah, very disappointing. This is a question about the Baroque cycle. Which the first part of it is all about the scientific revolution and Newton and Hooke and Leibniz, and those people are in the second volume of Confusion, but Confusion is more of a pirate story. And I have a soft spot for it, maybe too much of a soft spot, but I think they do show up. They get worked in.
What about? Can I skip ahead to System in the World?
Yeah, I mean, you'll miss a lot of great pirate stuff. really want to do that. You know, but if it's just killing you to read the exciting pirate adventures, skip ahead. I guess. Yes.
I read Snow Crash when it came out, loved it, still loved it, still love it. And it's made me wonder that you've been so prescient about so many things that have come along, you know, come scientifically, come to pass, and that the world is accelerated in so many ways, and technology just keeps accelerating and accelerating. Does it make it difficult to write things that are near future? Do you tend to now go to things that are distant future because it gives you more flexibility rather than trying to actually foresee where the world's going to be in 5, 6, 7 years?
There is a certain self-awareness that kicks in and becomes kind of a problem. If you feel like people are like going through the book, like, oh, what's he going to predict on page 35? Yeah. So that self-awareness can be a little bit of an encumbrance. No, I mean in Seveneves, the distant future stuff isn't like radically more technically advanced than what we've got now, mostly because these people have spent, you know, thousands of years just trying to stay alive and kind of claw their way back. So they haven't radically changed things. They're good at building really large objects in space and robots and a few other things, but it's not a huge jump forward in terms of science. The perception of me as someone who predicts stuff is based on the fact that I just predicted a ton of crap in Snow Crash, and a few things came true, or sort of came true if you kind of squint and look at it. There's a lot of stuff in there that didn't, right? So it's very very complimentary of people to only look at the ones that kind of came true, but that's a common science fiction thing that happens. Yes, front row.
In Snow Crash, the whole mental virus thing, you talk about like a hit history where people were programmed with words, and is that real? I can remember. Yeah, I think I tried to look up on Wikipedia if that was based on something that was real, or is that just like totally all?
Yeah, is the programming, the linguistic programming of people's brains in Snow Crash based on anything real? It's based on, just only based on some real stuff that is from Sumerian archaeological digs, where, you know, they had these things called nam shubs that were sort of like recipes or algorithms for doing things. So wildly stretching and exaggerating that, you know, I turned that into, you know, oh, this is how people were programmed to do things. But no,
Okay.
It's not. And it's a little bit inspired. It's a little bit of a riff on the origin of consciousness and the breakdown of the bicameral mind, which, you know, is sort of an interesting. It's interesting just because it posits a like crazily bizarre kind of origin story for the human brain and human society. But no, it's not. I would confuse it with. It's not based on a serious thing. Yes,
Okay.
a plaid shirt on the aisle there. Yeah.
I guess just following on that, do you do all of your research and then start writing, or do you do some and you write and you point and figure something out? Like, what's your?
It depends on the book. Like for Baroque Cycle, I had to do some pre-research just to get up to speed and to know where to start. And then after that, it was sort of just-in-time research. And then other areas, I just kind of more go for it. And so I think that you know, the risk that you run with over-researching is that you sort of delay your start, and I at least kind of feel like if I went to all that trouble to research this, that, or the other thing, you know, damn it, it's going to go in the book, you know, and so you can end up trying to wedge, kind of shoehorn your research in where maybe it's not actually helpful to the story. So in the case of Seveneves, I had enough Space Geek knowledge already stored up that I was able to get pretty deep into it before doing anything you would call research. And then I went pretty easy on it because, like, for example,
life on the space station is a thing that's very exhaustively documented. It's easy to, astronauts come back and they write books about it, and NASA has reams of data about it. And so it'd be very easy to turn that part of the book into this treatise of, Dinah went to urinate. In order to urinate in the environment of 0G, it was necessary to employ a specially designed toilet. The toilet had been built at NASA's Johnson Research Center at great cost during the late 1900s. He turns it into one of those books, and you're reading it like, okay, I get it. Dinah took a leak. Let's go. Let's hear about the end of the world. So I didn't want it to. So I was actually pretty sparing, and I think a lot of people who really do care, like if an ex-astronaut reads this, they're probably going to feel like I skimmed over a bunch of stuff in a really egregious way, just because I didn't want it to get hung up on researchy stuff. So yes, striped, horizontal stripe sweater.
There are some families that bridge the Baroque cycle and Cryptonomicon.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told that all of your novels are actually in the same fictional universe.
You've been told that.
It's like a modern day extinction event kind of includes some of the other novels.
Yeah.
Are there more Shaftoes?
Yeah, that's what everybody really wants to know. Where are the Shaftoes? Bring me more Shaftoes. No, you were misinformed, sir. I mean, I think I triggered some of this by planting like little funny Easter eggs in like the Diamond Age that, may have created that impression. So it's my fault, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to make one of those things where all of the books are connected. That up. Yes, sir. No.
How about a big, funny historical novel about the more distant past than Baroque cycle was?
Big, funny.
Like not funny, playful. Like Baroque cycle, but some other time.
I have been working on another big thing, of comparable size to the Baroque cycle. I'm not sure how funny it is. I'm not even sure if it's playful, but now that I'm in my gloomy, depressing phase, writing books that just makes everybody want to slash their wrists. It's kind of on hold. I decided to kind of stop, and because with Baroque cycle, it took me 7 years to write that thing. It was a good 7 years, don't get me wrong, but I figured if I was going to go into that tunnel again, I wanted to get a few things off my plate, if I may mix my metaphors, before I did so. So Seveneves was one of those. My next one probably will be too, but I am working on another big, sprawling, hilarious historical epic.
I think we have about time for one last one.
Okay, yes,
two.
I'm curious, so I love your books, and I've wondered whether you start with the science or with the characters.
I mean, it varies, but the thing that you're completely screwed if you don't have is a good yarn that people want to read. So I tend to look for the yarn first, like what would make a good yarn, and sometimes you can come to that through different paths. So sometimes a scientific idea may take you to a good yarn, which is a little bit what's going on with Seveneves. Or sometimes you've got a character thought up, and you want to tell a story about that character. But either way, before you start, you've got to have some sense of what the yarn is going to be. And then everything else is kind of in service to that. So, so that is kind of my priority list, if that helps at all.